Hi everyone, today I'll be showing you how to get started with your CD-608 digital balloon inflator and how to get the very best inflation results from this machine. We'll be covering programming, calibration and the types of balloons you can and can't inflate with this machine. Plus, as usual, there'll be lots of my top tips along the way. Hi, I'm Melanie from Balloon Artworks here in Derbyshire in the UK. A few months ago, I bought my first CD-608 digital balloon inflator. I already had a much more expensive digital balloon inflator, but I wanted a backup to that machine. And the other thing about that machine was I was getting a lot of vibrations from it. And as I have suffered from carpal tunnel syndrome and had surgery for that and recovered from that, I don't want to experience that again. So I was looking for a digital balloon inflator that was quick, precise and affordable. And I found the CD-608 and I bought this first balloon machine. And I loved it so much that I actually bought a second one. So I'm a big fan of this digital balloon inflator, but there are a few things that you need to know about it to get the best results from it. And these things I have learned by trial and error over the last few months. So I have found it to be quick and reliable and to inflate precisely, but there are some things that you need to do. This inflator can only do so much. And what I would say is that getting precise results, precise inflation results, it's down to 50% the inflator and 50% you and what you do and how you use the inflator. So I'm going to run through things that I've learned about this inflator and techniques that I now make sure that I follow to get the results that I want from this inflator every single time. The first thing to notice about your CD-608 inflator is that you have these two displays here. And unusually for a digital balloon inflator, you are able to program each outlet independently. So quite often we want to use a digital balloon inflator because we want to inflate two balloons to the same size and to be able to tie them together as a duplet to create a piece of classic balloon decor. For example, your classic spiral garland balloon arch. A precision digital inflator, you're most likely to use it for that style of classic decor. And unusually, you can program these outlets to be independent of one another. So you've got a display on one side for one outlet, and you've got a display on the other side for this other outlet. And so you program each outlet to the size that you want. So you can inflate two balloons to the same size and then tie them together, provided you have entered exactly the same settings on both sides. If you want to inflate balloons to different sizes, then you can program one side to be one size and the other side to be a different size. And I'll show you how that works. So you switch on your machine here and you use these plus and minus buttons at the top and bottom of the display to change the setting or the timer for the outlets. So if you want to inflate your balloon more, then you would use the plus button to increase the amount of air that's going to come out of the machine. And it's important to stress that this is an air inflator. So the balloons that you inflate using this machine are not going to float. This is an air inflator. So if you want a larger size balloon, you use the plus button to increase the number on the display, and that will inflate the balloon for a longer period of time and you will get a larger balloon. Conversely, if you want a smaller balloon, then you use the minus button to reduce the number on the display, and that will inflate for a shorter period of time and you will get a smaller balloon. So that's how it works. You also have these pink knobs here. And when you turn the knob, the display just flashes a different number. So you get numbers ranging from 0 to 20. So this I think of as fine tuning. So the plus and minus buttons are the way that you set your main timer, and this is fine-tuning of that. And again, whatever setting you have on one side, if you want the same size balloon on the other side, you need to program and adjust the setting on this side using the pink knob. So that's really important. I can't stress enough the importance. If you're wanting balloons inflated to the same size through each outlet, the setting on each side, both the display and the setting reading that you get by twiddling the pink knob, they have to be exactly the same. Otherwise, your balloons will inflate to different sizes. So I'm going to inflate 2 balloons. These are standard latex 11-inch balloons, and I want to inflate them, each of them, to 9 inches. So I am going to program my display to 1.1 on each side, and I'm going to use the pink knobs, and I'm going to set those to a reading of 10 on each side. Okay, so the display reads 1.1, and when I adjust these pink knobs, you want it to stop at 10, okay, and that's on each side. Now, when you inflate, you've got a green button here that you can press, or you can use the foot pedal, the treadle switch. I very rarely use the treadle switch. It's just a matter of personal preference, whether you like to use the foot pedal or whether you prefer to use the green button. I just find it much easier to use the green button. I've got fewer things to coordinate then. I don't need to coordinate my hands and my feet. But if you prefer to use a foot pedal, you've got that option. It's there for you. And I do like that about this machine, that it gives you those options. You've got the button or you've got the foot pedal. And again, that's not always the case with some of the more expensive digital balloon inflators. So I'm going to use the button. I take my 2 balloons and I put them on the outlets. And here is where there is another critical thing that you need to do to ensure your balloons inflate correctly. These outlets have a ridge, and when I first started using this machine, I found that sometimes the balloons did not inflate to the same size, and I couldn't at first understand why, until I realised that the cause of the balloons not inflating precisely, it was me. It was my poor practice. So what I was doing, I was just taking the balloons, putting them on, not really paying much attention to how far I'd push the balloons down onto the outlets, and I might push it quite far down on one side and not so far down on the other side. And the balloons, I was getting different size balloons. And then I realised that what you have to do is you have to ensure that the nozzle, this bead that is around the end of the balloon, you have to ensure that the nozzle is pressed down, right down to this ridge here on the outlet. And you have to make sure you do that on both sides, because if you're not doing that, the balloons will not inflate to the size that you want. And it's most noticeable when you are wanting to inflate 2 balloons to the same size. The other thing to bear in mind is that when you are inflating, you need to have your fingers around the nozzle, holding the nozzle of the balloon down onto the outlet, onto that ridge, and making sure that the air isn't able to escape, or that the balloon isn't able to lift off the outlet. So again, those 2 things, pushing down onto the outlet and also using your fingers to wrap around as much as you can the nozzle to hold it down and keep it in place so that no air escapes and the balloon doesn't lift. And if you are using the green button to inflate, again, you have to be very careful that as you might swivel your hand or move your hand slightly to reach the green button, you need to make sure that in doing so, you're not lifting the balloon slightly off this ridge, and that you're still holding on to the neck of the balloon and the nozzle of the balloon, and holding it down even as you twist. Okay, so I'll show you how that works. So we put both balloons on, we press down, and I'm holding those quite firmly, and then I hit the green button. Okay. And I'm going to tie those two balloons together. And there you've got a duplet of balloons that are the same size. So those are very approximately 9 inches, maybe just slightly more than 9 inches. But one of the things that you need to do with a digital inflator, and this is the same with all digital inflators, it's not just the CD-608, you need to work out the settings yourself, because each machine may vary slightly. Okay, so you need to find out what the setting is for your machine. So to begin with, there's a certain amount of trial and error to work out what settings you need to inflate to certain sizes. So you will need to experiment with playing around with the buttons and the pink knob, and then maybe trying a sizing box or measuring these balloons to see whether you've got the size that you want. And what I do is I make a list. Once I work out a size, a particular size, then I write it down on a list. And I know that 1.1 and on my machine, 1.1 and a fine tuning to 10 using the pink knobs is roughly 9 inches, maybe just a little bit bigger. What I am doing is I'm compiling a list of settings for my two machines. And what I will do in the description below this video, I'll show you where you can get the CD-608. If you haven't got one already and you're interested and you want to find more, I'll show you where you can get this machine in the description below this video. And I will also post a link to my blog. I will also post a link to my blog post, or maybe it's a blog post, I don't know, maybe that will catch on to my blog post, where I tell you more about this machine. And I also have a list there of the settings or the calibrations that I have come up with for my two machines. And it will give you a starting point. So you won't be guessing completely what sort of settings you need. You will be able to take my settings and then just fine tune and adjust for your own machines, but you won't be starting completely from scratch. The other thing to bear in mind is that if you are inflating balloons with a different finish, those balloons will behave differently to a fashion finish or a standard finish. So these are fashion colours or standard colours, depending on which manufacturer you've gone to. So there's absolutely nothing fancy about these balloons. They're quite simply good quality balloons. But if you are inflating balloons with a pearl finish, for example, those balloons tend to be a little bit thicker and a little bit stiffer, and therefore they need more pressure to inflate, and therefore you will need to adjust your settings. If you want a pearl balloon, 11-inch balloon inflated to 9 inches, you will probably need to increase your settings to what I've done today, okay? Because they just take that little bit more effort and pressure to inflate. And similarly with some of the other finishes. So again, if you are inflating duplets and you want the balloons the same size, but one's a fashion finish and one's a pearl finish or a metallic finish, you may need to adjust your settings. And that's another reason I think this machine is so brilliant, because you can do that by changing the settings for one outlet. So there is a lot to work out about this machine, and there is a lot to get the hang of. It's not something that you're going to pick up necessarily straight away. You're going to need to put a little bit of effort in to get the best out of the machine, but I think it's well worth it. And if you've been doing a lot of organic decor, maybe you started doing organic decor and you haven't done any classic balloon decor, you've probably been using an inflator that's more like this one, and you inflate the balloons to whatever size. You're not bothered about sizing them. It's a matter of how they look, and you want a nice round finish, but the balloons are all different sizes and precision inflation doesn't matter, then you are going to find this machine very, very different, and it's going to take a little bit of time to get the hang of it, a little bit of adjustment, and a little bit of practice. I've been asked how noisy this inflator is. Well, you've heard it. Yes, it's noisy, but all inflators are, and certainly all digital inflators are, and it's no noisier than any other digital inflator that I have used. What size balloons does it inflate? Well, all of them. So from 5-inch balloons. So let me demonstrate. Now, one thing I have noticed is you've got these different nozzles, and I find I like to use these small pointy nozzles for the 5-inch balloons. So I'm going to inflate these 5-inch balloons to about 4.5 inches, and I'm going to set my outlets on each side to 0.4, and I'm going to fine tune to 20 with the pink knobs. Okay, so both 5-inch rounds, again, put them down onto the outlets, far down to the ridge, and then hit the button. And time. Okay, and there you've got balloons that are approximately 4.5 inches. Now, these do have a slightly pearl finish to them. Let's compare them and let's look at them against the sizing box. So 4.5 inches, just very slightly bigger, but you can see those are the same size. What I would say about inflating the 5-inch round balloons is sometimes these nozzles do lift off, okay? So you just have to be aware of that. I had a question about whether it's possible to inflate double stuffed balloons, and the answer is absolutely yes. Okay, and the CD-608 even comes with these 2 prongs, which you screw into this area. So this is where these pointy nozzles normally live. And you just remove those and you screw these 2 rods in there. And that means that you can double stuff your balloons really easily and really quickly. And then they're ready to inflate. So I'm going to inflate my double stuffed 5-inch rounds. Push them there. It is harder to push them down onto down to this ridge. And you'll see we've got a teeny tiny balloon. And that's because I used the same setting on the machine as I did for these. So that setting of 0.4 and fine-tuned to 20 inflates this size on single stuffed pearl balloons and this size on double stuffed. So you will need to increase your settings to get a larger balloon. Or you can use these outlets, which are attached to the machine, and I find that really, really helpful. I wish these were attached to the machine as well. But let's see what happens. Now, the only thing about these nozzles is you don't have the same sort of ridge, so it is a bit more of a judgment call. So we're going to use 0.4 and 20, and let's see what sort of size we get. Press the button. Okay, so that's much more like it, but again, it's still smaller than 4.5. So let's check it against the sizing box. So this balloon is smaller than 4.5 inches, but it is bigger than 4. So this could be where you increase to 5, 0.5, and then you fine tune down using your pink knobs, okay? But but the reason you're getting a smaller inflation is because, you know, the latex is twice as thick. It's much thicker because it's double stuffed. It takes so much more effort to inflate to the size of a single balloon. Okay, so just bear these things in mind as you're using your pump. You can double stuff the larger balloons as well, the 11 inches, the 12 inches, 13 inches, 14 inches, 16 inches, 18 inches, all of them. Okay, so I shall demonstrate. So this is so handy, just being able to have those little rods there. Again, push down onto the nozzle. So it handles double stuffing exceptionally well. The CD-608, it will inflate balloons from as small as 5 inches right the way up to 36 inches. Some of you have asked whether the CD-608 will inflate twisting balloons. Well, let me show you what happens when I try to inflate a twisting balloon. So I have seen a video of this machine inflating a twisting balloon, but I have not been able to get it to inflate Qualitex or Sempertex/Battelatex 260s. So I suspect it might inflate the very thin twisting balloons, which I don't use. Let's try 350 and see if that's any better. So I'm using the middle size nozzle. And that's actually the first time I've tried a 350. So let me try that nozzle with a 260. No go. Okay. So that's something at least. You can at least inflate through 50s. But if you're a twister and you're wanting an inflator that is for twisting, then this is not the machine for you. The other thing to bear in mind is this machine comes with a 2-pin plug, which I believe is the American 2-pin plug. So I had to buy an adapter plug, which I was able to get really easily here in the UK, and I'll leave a link in the description to where I got that for the UK.